Okay, so if you have ever been to a rock show, any heavy metal festival, or let's be honest, just a dive bar on a Saturday, you've seen it.
Oh, yeah.
That hand gesture, the index finger and the pinky up, thumb tucked in, the devil horns.
It is the universal sign for this rocks. It just is. And the man who made that global was like 5'4", but he cast a shadow over the entire history of heavy metal.
Ronnie James Dio. But here's the thing. We all know the voice, we know the songs, the gesture. But the story behind the man is so much more complicated. I mean, we're talking about a guy who connected the dots between Rainbow, Black Sabbath, and his own legendary band, Dio.
It's a fascinating path. You have this, I mean, arguably the greatest voice in the genre's history, but his whole career was this constant push and pull between, you know, art, business, and just these massive personalities.
And that is exactly our mission for this deep dive. We're going to get into how a band that was literally formed out of frustration created a masterpiece.
And the messy stuff. The ego clashes, the firing.
The Tom Jones insult that went so wrong.
We have to talk about that.
Yeah.
And his legacy, which, I mean, it stretches from Stranger Things all the way to a super controversial hologram tour that asks some really big questions.
We've got a ton of sources, biographies, interviews with guys like Vinny Appice and Vivian Campbell, documentary reviews, even some academic papers on this whole hologram thing. So let's jump in. It's 1982.
Right.
Ronnie James Dio is fronting Black Sabbath. That should be the dream job, right?
You'd think so. I mean, he replaced Ozzy Osbourne, which should have been impossible.
Oh.
And he totally revitalized the band with Heaven and Hell. But behind the scenes, things were getting ugly.
And it wasn't over the usual rock and roll cliche.
No, not money, not drugs. It was the mixing board.
This is one of my all-time favorite petty rock star stories.
It's so wild. So they're working on the live album, Live Evil. And the story goes that Tony Iommi and Geezer Butler accused Ronnie and the drummer, Vinny Appice, of sneaking into the studio at night.
To do what?
To turn up their own instruments.
A volume war.
Exactly. To turn up the vocals and the drums and, you know, nudge the guitar and bass down. The trust was just gone.
So Ronnie and Vinny quit, and that's where the band Dio really begins. It wasn't some grand plan.
No, it was a reaction. Total frustration.
And Vinny Appice tells this great story about meeting Ronnie right after at the Rainbow Bar and Grill in Hollywood.
The center of the 80s rock universe.
Absolutely. And Ronnie just says to him, "I'm leaving. I want you to come with me." And Vinny, who's still in his early 20s, just says, "Sure. How can this fail with a singer like that?"
That says it all, right? The voice was the asset. So they have the singer, the drummer. They get Jimmy Bain on bass, who Ronnie knew from Rainbow, but they needed a guitarist.
And they didn't just pick some guy off the Sunset Strip.
No, because in '82, the Strip was all Eddie Van Halen clones.
Yeah.
You know, tapping, dive bombs, the whole thing. Ronnie wanted something darker, more European.
So they actually fly to London.
Yeah, scouring the clubs, looking for the guy. And they're not finding him.
And then Jimmy Bain says, "Hey, I know this kid in Ireland."
Which leads to this legendary 2 a.m. phone call to Vivian Campbell's house in Belfast.
Can you imagine?
His dad picks up, also named Vivian, and he's not happy. But they get young Vivian on the phone and basically say, "Get on a plane to London tomorrow."
It's the golden ticket moment.
It is. And the audition is so telling. They jam on a rough version of Holy Diver, and Ronnie loved that Vivian didn't just shred.
Right.
Vinny Appice said he played with taste. He even compared him to a rougher Randy Rhoads.
That is a massive, massive compliment.
It is. So the chemistry is instant. They go to L.A., Sound City Studios to record Holy Diver. And by all accounts, the vibe was just pure chaos.
It sounds less like a recording session and more like a frat house.
Totally. They were smoking pot, breaking into the pinball machines to rig them.
Destroying candy machines.
Vinny even said they locked the band Vanilla Fudge in their rehearsal room next door, just as a prank.
He just locked them in.
Yeah. But in the middle of all this, they were being so creative with, like, no technology.
You have to tell the invisible story.
Oh, the intro sound.
Yes. They wanted this sound of, like, air rushing into a room.
So what do?
They bring a spare truck tire into the recording booth.
No way.
And just let the air out into a microphone. That's the sound on the album.
That's amazing. And speaking of studio tricks, you have to mention the backmasking.
Oh, this is classic, Ronnie.
So Sabbath was always getting accused of satanic messages, right? It was this whole moral panic. So Ronnie decides to just troll everybody.
On the song Shame on the Night?
Yep. If you play the end backwards, there's a hidden message. And it just says, "Crucify the diver."
It's just a joke about his own album art.
Exactly. And the result of all that chaos is Holy Diver in 1983. It is just lightning in a bottle.
It wasn't calculated. It was just pure chemistry and a spare tire.
And it makes Ronnie not just a singer, but a brand. But of course, with that success comes complications.
Right. The boys' club can't last forever. By '84, they released The Last in Line, and they are huge. But inside the band, things are already falling apart.
Yeah, and it really seems to center on the relationship between Ronnie and Vivian Campbell.
The Tom Jones story.
Oh, the Tom Jones story.
Yeah.
So Vivian is trying to give Ronnie a compliment, and he says, "You remind me of Tom Jones."
Whew, you can just feel the air go out of the room.
Now, Vivian meant it as a compliment, a powerful masculine voice. But Ronnie took it as a huge insult. He's a heavy metal warlord, not some Las Vegas pop singer.
It was more than just bad compliments, though. It always comes down to money.
It always does. Claude Schnell, the keyboardist, said the band was basically structured as Ronnie's solo project. Ronnie and his wife, Wendy, who was the manager, owned everything. The name, the lyrics, the melodies.
And the other guys were just salaried employees.
Exactly. And Vivian felt they were promised a piece of the pie, equity. Schnell claims Vivian was basically set up to be fired because he kept pushing for his fair share.
And things got really strict.
Incredibly strict. Like, Vivian said guitar players weren't allowed to smile on stage.
Wait, what? No smiling?
No smiling.
Yeah.
You had to look mean, and you were absolutely not allowed to sing backing vocals. Ronnie's logic was, Ritchie Blackmore and Tony Iommi didn't sing, so you don't sing.
That doesn't sound like a band.
Well, Claude Schnell said musically, it felt like a band. But financially, it was a solo project wearing a band's costume. And that tension just pushed Vivian out.
And when he leaves, it really feels like a turning point. The 90s hit, and for a lot of traditional metal bands,
it was an extinction-level event. Grunge just took over. The whole Dungeons & Dragons thing was suddenly seen as really uncool.
And Dio struggled. Constant lineup changes. And then you get the album Angry Machines in 1996.
Which, yeah, it's often called the low point. They dropped the fantasy stuff for, modern issues, and it just sounded sluggish. It wasn't what the fans wanted.
But to his credit, he found his way back. By 2000, he puts out Magica.
And it's back to Wizards and Dragons, a total return to form. But I want to bring up his perfectionism here because it never went away. There's this story in the Dreamers Never Die documentary about Rainbow in the Dark.
Maybe his biggest, most definitive song.
He almost destroyed the master tape.
Yeah, wow.
He thought it was too poppy. He hated the keyboard riff. He thought it was soft. He literally had a razor blade in his hand about to slice the tape to pieces. The band had to physically talk him down.
That's wild. But it shows how protective he was of that image.
He was the guardian of the brand. And he kept working, which leads to this amazing full-circle moment in 2007.
The Heaven and Hell reunion.
He gets back together with the Sabbath guys, Tony, Geezer, and Vinny. And they tour under the name Heaven and Hell.
And they were incredible. They didn't sound like an oldies act at all.
No, they were heavier than ever. They put out a great album, The Devil You Know. Everything was going great. And then, late 2009, the European tour is canceled.
And this part is just so tough. Wendy Dio announces Ronnie has stomach cancer, but the way she announced it was...
It was so perfectly Dio.
Yeah.
She used this metaphor. She said, after he kills this dragon, Ronnie will be back on stage.
They framed the cancer as just another mythical beast to be slain.
And he kept working. He was writing his book, planning a new Dio album. He never stopped fighting.
His last public appearance was at the Revolver Golden Gods Awards in April 2010.
Yeah, you can see the pictures. He looks frail, but he's there, accepting an award. And then just a month later, May 16th, he passed away.
There's that story about his final recording.
This Is Your Life.
Yeah.
Just a piano ballad, so stripped back. And listening to it now, knowing it was the last time that voice was ever captured on tape, it's haunting.
So Ronnie's gone, but in heavy metal, nobody's ever really gone. Which brings us to this really complicated legacy. First, we got to talk about Murray.
Murray.
The mascot.
The big demon on the album covers.
Right, but Ronnie always had this philosophical take on him. He'd say, on the Holy Diver cover, you don't know if the demon is the bad guy or if the priest is.
Classic Ronnie. And that imagery, that whole vibe is seeped into everything.
Oh, totally. Look at Stranger Things. Eddie Munson's battle jacket has that massive Dio patch on the back. And that was a real one. Ronnie's estate sent the show one of his own vintage shirts to use.
Which is so cool. And then you have the Anime JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, where the main villain is named Dio Brando, and of course, Tenacious D.
Jack Black basically built a career out of worshiping Dio. He even got Ronnie to do a cameo in his movie.
He did. He played himself, a rock god giving advice from a poster.
So the cultural footprint is huge.
Yeah.
But there's this other part of his legacy that is, well, it's really controversial, and that's the hologram.
Yeah. This is where it gets weird. A few years ago, they launched a Dio Returns tour with a live band and a hologram of Ronnie on stage.
I've seen clips. It's strange. It kind of hits that uncanny valley thing.
It does. It looks almost human, but not quite. And so it gives you this creepy, eerie feeling, like you're watching a ghost or a puppet.
And the fans were really divided?
Divided is a nice way to put it. A lot of people hated it, called it ghoulish. Claude Schnell, the keyboardist, was really blunt. He basically said it wasn't a tribute, it was a business move to keep the machine running and employ some out-of-work musicians.
Which is a cynical take, but you can kind of see the point.
It raises this huge question. Can a live performance exist without a living performer? When you replace the human being with a projection, is it still rock and roll?
It's a weird paradox. We want our heroes to be immortal, but when technology literally tries to do it, we kind of reject it.
Exactly, because the magic of a Dio show wasn't just the perfect notes. It was the sweat. It was the spontaneity. It was knowing he might stop the show to yell at a security guard, which he actually did. A hologram can't do that. A hologram is perfect. Rock and roll is supposed to be imperfect.
So looking back at this whole journey, you have this guy who starts in this chaotic, creative boys club. He navigates the brutal side of the business, battles a terrible disease with absolute dignity, and now he's a digital ghost.
It really is a Shakespearean story. And I think the key thing is the duality of the man. By all accounts, he was this friendly, approachable guy who would sign autographs for hours. A total gentleman.
Yeah.
But he was also this incredibly strong-willed, complicated artist who ran his band with an iron fist because he had this singular vision.
He knew what he wanted.
He absolutely did. And that's why, despite all the lineup changes and the feuds, you listen to Holy Diver today and it doesn't sound dated. It just sounds like Dio.
It really does.
Yeah.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. We're in an age where technology can basically resurrect our heroes. We've seen it with Tupac, Whitney Houston, Dio. But if the dragon of mortality can be defeated by a hard drive, do we lose something essential in the process?
When you take the risk out of the performance,
yeah,
does the magic gone too? That's the real question.
I think Ronnie would say the magic is in humanity. Thanks for diving deep with us today.